We're going to talk about being emotionally triggered, meaning when something happens that creates an intense emotional reaction to us that's disproportionate to the thing that happened. We have a big emotional response to something that in hindsight isn't that big, but in the moment it feels intense. We're going to talk about what's going on and how to deal with this one so that we can be people that respond instead of react. If you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Make sure you introduce yourself in the comment section below and subscribe to the channel so that we can stay connected. I think the button's about right down here. And if you are back again, welcome back. I'm always so glad to have you here. Either way, my name is Julia Christina and I'm a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, and the creator of the Breakthrough Coaching Program. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology and I work to help heart-centered go-getter men and women break through the crap that is holding them back so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. So what is an emotional trigger? What are we talking about here? And I mentioned it a little bit at the beginning, but essentially an emotional trigger is a disproportionate response to a given stimuli. And that's just psychobabble for saying when we overreact to something. And the reason we're having an overreaction is because that thing that is happening is typically hitting a deeper wound or a deeper insecurity or something deeper inside, which is why it feels so much bigger than it is. We are not responding to the present. We are reacting to the past, and something is feeling threatened. Something inside of us is feeling deeply threatened. And so because we are feeling threatened, our brains and our bodies go into fight or flight response. They go into survival mode, which is why we have this big reaction. And the big reaction doesn't always happen by something on the outside. It's not always that we scream or yell or freak out or get all upset on the outside. It can be that we overthink or overstress or over-obsess about thoughts happening on the inside, that we are making something mean something really big, and then we are responding to it in that way. And so we feel it in our bodies first. How we know we're getting triggered is we are going to have a physical reaction again because our body is getting ready to fight or to run away, to get the heck out of there because it's feeling threatened. And so some things that you might feel when you're being triggered is you might feel like a flipping feeling in your belly. You might feel a tingling in your armpits, a tightness in your chest, a lump in your throat, a hotness in your head, a ringing in your ears. You might just feel kind of like you've got a heavy weight sitting on top of you. And I want you to take a minute now and I want you to think about the last time you were emotionally triggered. What did it feel like in your body? And I want you to put that in the comment section below so that just to understand that better, to start paying attention to what's going on. And so as I mentioned, we are having these responses, we're having these reactions to past pain or hurts. And it feels really real in the moment. Whatever it is that's happening, it can really feel like I'm being rejected. It can feel like I'm being controlled. It can feel like I'm being abandoned. It can feel like I'm being belittled. Even if the person didn't do anything really all that big of a deal. And in hindsight, we see it wasn't that big of a deal. Or when we understand what was really happening, we realize it wasn't that big of a deal. But in the moment, it feels really real. And so having that understanding for ourselves and shaming or blaming or criticizing ourselves for our emotional response or emotional reaction is not going to help us deal with it and be able to move through it. So we just need to show that understanding. You're not being weak or weird or pathetic or broken by having these triggered responses. It's because there's something deeper going on. So what do we do about it? How do we handle it when we are being emotionally triggered? How do we deal with it so that we can feel more in charge of our emotions, so we can feel like we are responding to what's happening in the present instead of, like I said, having these big reactions because of something that likely happened in the past, and it's triggering that, it's hitting that wound, it's hitting that thing again, and that's why it's creating this big response. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you an acronym, and this is an acronym that you're going to follow next time you're feeling triggered, and the acronym is STORM. And the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to use the letter S, and we are going to stop and take a breath. And the reason why this breath is so important, we need to take a big, deep, slow belly breath and really focus on a slow exhale. So a big, deep breath with a slow exhale. And what we're doing here is we are breaking the fight or flight response that we're having. Because when we are having a fight or flight response, when we're being triggered, we can't actually access the cortex part of our brain. We can't access the rational, reasonable, logical part of our brain. That's why telling yourself to just calm down, to just not get so worked up, to just not freak out, that's why it doesn't work, because you can't access that part, because the amygdala is being hijacked, the limbic system is being taken over, and the emotional center of your brain is in full swing. And so trying to access our rational brain when our body is being taken over with this emotion is not going to work, because what's happening is you're having this physical response. There's a threat. You're having this physical response. Your body is all ready to go. It's all ready to either beeline it out of there or like get your dukes up and fight it out. And so your body is having this response, and then it's sending messages to your brain that like, okay, because our body is all tensed up and ready to go, it means that there's a threat. And because our brain is saying, okay, so our body is all tensed up, so there's a threat, then, I've got to make sure that I'm ready to go. And so this just keeps going back and forth like this. And because we can't intervene, like I said, at the cognitive level, we have to intervene at the physical level. And so taking a big, deep belly breath is going to just slow things right down. It's going to relax your body. It's going to calm your body, which is then going to send messages to your brain, and your brain's going to think, oh, the body is calm, so there must not be a real danger. So I guess I don't need to freak out quite so much. And then things are going to just go back and forth that way. We're going to be going in the other direction, and your brain and your body will be having a positive feedback loop. So we're feeding off each other in a positive way to help you feel more calm. And now, when you're feeling like you can feel the ground under your feet again, you're feeling more calm, then we go to the next part, which is T, and we're going to tune in to what we're feeling. What happened? What was I feeling in that moment? Why did I get triggered? I was feeling like I was feeling abandoned, or I was feeling threatened, or I was feeling rejected, or I was feeling controlled, or I was feeling whatever that is. Just paying attention to what happened there. Why did I have that response? Getting to know what our feelings are. Oftentimes we are so disconnected from our feelings, we feel like all of these things are just happening and we don't really understand why. So connecting with our feelings. So T is tune into what you're feeling. O stands for observe what you're thinking. So whatever it is that happened, in a split second, you had a thought about whatever it is that happened that thought about what happened felt threatening. So that thought, what did I make this mean? That this person is rejecting me, that this person doesn't love me, that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy enough, that I am failing, that I can't do anything right. What is it? What is the thought? What are the thoughts that were going through your head? How did your brain interpret whatever it was that was happening? Maybe it said like, oh, here we go again. This is just going to happen again. This just keeps happening to me. No one is ever going to stick around, or I'm never going to be good enough, or I don't have what it takes, or I'm not worthy enough, or whatever that is. Just tune into those thoughts that were going through your mind when that thing, what was said or what was done, that stimulus, whatever it was, just pay attention to what you were thinking, what you were making that mean about you, about them, about life, about whatever. So once we understand that we are having these interpretations of these situations that are creating these emotional reactions in us, then we can take a little bit of a step back, right? We become the observer of our thoughts. We see ourselves interpreting a situation in a certain way, and often if we are having a negative reaction, it is not a helpful way. So then we take a step back and we consider other thoughts. We choose to think on purpose. So this is the R part of our acronym, we reframe those thoughts. We reframe what we're thinking. So if this person didn't text me back right away, does it necessarily mean that they are leaving me, that they hate me, that they've all of a sudden decided that I'm not good enough for them? Or could it mean that they got distracted with something else, or they are in the middle of something else and they couldn't take the time to sit down and reply to us in that very moment. Or if someone asks us to do something, they ask for our help in something, and we start to have this reaction like, oh my gosh, this person's trying to control me. They're just trying to get me to do whatever they want all the time, and they're trying to guilt me or manipulate me or whatever that is. Take a step back and get curious about that. What am I making this mean? That this person asked me to do something. Why did it make me feel like I was being controlled? What was that hitting? What was I thinking that they were doing in that situation? And could it be something else? Could it be that they were just making a request? And could I remind myself that I am always allowed to say no, that I'm not being backed into a corner or forced or manipulated into doing something, that I always have my own choice and I can say no, this is not a real threat. And so just reminding ourselves, so whatever that is, choosing a different thought, reframing those thoughts into something that is more helpful, something that is more productive, something that is going to allow us to respond to that situation instead of react. And then M. M stands for move in to self-compassion. Because often what happens when we have a big reaction to something, like I said before, we end up really being hard on ourselves. We end up criticizing ourselves and judging ourselves, saying, what's wrong with you? Why do you always freak out? Why do you take things so personally? Why do you let things bother you? And understanding again that these are things that are hitting deeper wounds. It takes some work to heal this stuff, to move through this stuff, to understand and to be present with what's happening in the present, instead of always reacting to the past, but showing ourselves that self-compassion in this process, that you're not weird or flawed or broken for having a big reaction to something. It's part of being human. So having that self-compassion, that understanding for yourself, it's not helpful to judge or blame or shame or criticize yourself for whatever was happening. It's just not helpful. It's completely counterproductive, and it's going to keep us stuck in the shame instead of able to take a step back and learn how to heal and deal with this stuff better. So our STORM acronym again. S stands for stop and take a breath. T stands for tune in to what you're feeling. What's going on? O stands for observe what you're thinking. What was your interpretation of this situation? What created those feelings? R stands for reframe those thoughts. How do I want to interpret this differently? How do I want to think about what are some other options about what's really going on here? And M stands for move into self-compassion. Just be with yourself in this whole process. Be kind towards yourself for whatever it is that is going on. If learning how to not get so pulled into things, not be so reactive to what's going on is something that you want to work more on, I have a guided mindfulness exercise for you. It is completely free, and the link to it is in the description below. You can grab that and stick some earphones in and listen to it right now if you want. And this exercise is really great from learning how to just observe what's happening instead of getting so pulled into it and being so reactive in our everyday lives with whatever it is that's happening around us. Come and join my Facebook group, goodformegroup.com. Please subscribe to the channel. I love having you all here so that you can get notified when we have a video that comes out. And yeah, like the video, share it out. And if you do share it out, please do let me know because that means the world to me. Until next time, take good care.